among other things, here on Captain Phil's Planet. Candice, welcome to Stony Brook Radio. You are a neighbor of ours.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Actually, I had both of my children in Stony Brook, so I am very, it's like being home again. I'm very excited to be here with you guys. Thanks, Captain Phil.
Oh, thank you so much. And you know what? I went through your Twitter account, by the way, just as an aside, and I noticed that you hung out with another captain, possibly not as famous as Captain Phil, but you have a nice picture on your Twitter account with you and William Shatner.
Yes, we do. Or Bill, as he likes to be known to his friends, I guess. He is just a fabulous guy. I mean, he actually had asked both Richie and myself, of course, my husband, Richie Blackmore, and myself, to be on a couple of his CDs, one of them being working with him on his space-themed CD. I'm not sure. You should, if you don't have this, you need to have this, Phil.
He did like a progressive rock type CD a couple of years back. Is this the latest one, or is this the one I'm mentioning, the progressive rock one?
Yeah, his latest one is a blues-themed one. Yes. So we actually did The Thrill Is Gone with him on that. My husband did, of course, his brilliant guitar work on that, and I do the backing vocals because William Shatner he's first and foremost, he's amazing with his interpretation of the songs. But the one that started it all was Space Oddity, that amazing Bowie song. So that's where we first started our relationship with William Shatner. And he had a whole space-themed CD that he put out there, and Richie and I worked on that with him. So it's always a thrill to work with him. He's just a great guy.
How cool is that? So, of course, you have landed on Captain Phil's Planet if we start out the show talking about Captain Kirk. And Bill, as Candice likes to refer to him, is celebrating his 90th birthday this year. He just had his 90th birthday a few weeks ago, and he will be going up to Ticonderoga, New York for a convention, believe it or not, in July.
I met him actually at Comic-Con out here on the island. So, he's amazing. I mean, even watching his television shows, he's always doing things that kind of really captivate your interest. Whether he's doing road trips with Henry Winkler or, doing all this reality stuff, or now he's into the paranormal stuff that he has a show on. So he's just a really fascinating person. And I cannot believe he's 90. That just proves that age really does not exist, right? It's just a number. It's
kind of amazing. And we were talking before we went on, you're a local Long Island girl. Your Wikipedia page says you come from Hop Hog, Long Island. You've done amazing things, and most amazing is this amazing opus, body of work for Blackmore's Night. The collaboration you have with Richie, the wonderful singing, and I mean, I don't want to be rude or anything, but you don't sing like you're from Long Island. You have an amazing. I mean, can you do Long Island? Can you do the voice?
Oh my God! Of course I can. Are you kidding me? Yeah. I mean, I have my cup of coffee in front of me. It's all good, and. No, actually, I have friends who do have a very strong Long Island accent, and as soon as I finish talking to them, you can always tell I've been hanging out with them because, see, I started there, hanging out with them, because, I just slip, it's just natural, but it's funny because when I'm singing, I've actually read reviews of my voice and of my singing technique, where, the pronunciation especially, where, English people have said, there she goes with trying to do that fake English accent again, and I'm going, I'm pretty sure when I'm singing the word dance, you'd rather I say dance as opposed to, dance the way that we would say it, out here. So, I get it. Like, I don't think I'm trying to put on any other accent. It's just like interpreting the songs, but I'm trying to have a very neutralized accent because our music does go worldwide. So it's nice, when people, kind of hear you doing something more neutral as opposed to, very regional dialect.
Well, I tell you, listening to the new album and in my mind thinking, okay, she's from Hop Hog.
I heard it.
I said to myself, Candice should be doing, the train arrival announcements on the Long Island Railroad, because it's always like, Wantor next, Wantor, Massapequa Park, and I'm like, this gal's voice is crystal clear. I love it. It's so beautiful. It's so clear.
Most of the people I know don't really have an accent out here. I know every time I talk to someone about being from Long Island, they go, "Oh, Long Island," and it's like, I don't really know. I mean, I know a handful of people that do have the accent, but look, you don't really have an accent either. So,
well, I'm actually have moved, and my wife and I retired, and I'm up here near Albany now, and so I'm speaking to you from Albany. But I still do my show, and the original before COVID, I was just driving down every other week to do my show and to get bagels, and pizza.
Of course, which is in every shopping center. Because
the pizza and bagels are so wonderful up here. I'm in West Coxsackie, New York, and it's like people say, "Why'd you move up here?" I said, "I moved up here for the Chinese food." What do you think? What do you think I moved up here for? But it's beautiful up here. I'm like in a fairly rural area, even though I'm close to the thruway. There's a sheep farm across the street from me. And it's lovely. And you know what, and listening to you and Richie and the album, I look out the window at the sheep grazing, and and I'm thinking to myself, they should do a concert on my front lawn.
Right? And so you could be anywhere. You could be in England. You could be in Scotland. You could be like when you look out and you play an audio that kind of really transport you, and that visual and that audio like really meet together and mesh, and you could literally transport yourself any place. That's amazing.
So did you go to Hop Hog High School?
I did. Yes, I did.
I taught there after you graduated. I did. I'm a retired music teacher, and I taught there probably, I think, in the 2000s for a little bit. I worked for a special education agency called Eastern Suffolk BOCES, I'm sure you're familiar with. And we had some classes there, so I did stomp around your school for a little bit.
And see, I knew you had something to do with Hop Hog because not everybody who looks at the name Hop Hog can actually pronounce it correctly. So I knew you had some sort of, roots there. So yes, I was born in Smithtown General, went to Hop Hog, actually went to Whippoorwill before they discovered that it had asbestos, and then they stuck us in portables. I don't know if this is probably before your time, but I
actually survived teaching through the asbestos crisis. Yes, and we actually had to actually move an entire building of medically fragile special education elementary school age kids into another building in Smithtown, ironically, for a few months, and then we moved back to our building. It was Nessaquag. We moved into Nessaquag Middle School in Smithtown. Yep, that's where we were for a little while. And
it's a pretty intense thing. I mean, they closed down our school and they put us in portables for when I was in 5th and 6th grade. So I was in the portables for 2 years, which basically have no heat really in the winter time. And then went on to Hop Hog Middle School, Hop Hog High School, graduated there, and went on to New York Tech in Old Westbury. So Long Island. And then, when I met Richie, he was living in Connecticut. I moved up there with him for a year and a half, and then I said, I'm an island girl. I got to get back to my home. So I came back.
And Richie was like, "No problem, let's go. When do we leave?" Right?
Yeah, well, it's funny because he's lived in so many places at this point. The guy's been on the road since he was 16 years old, and then, whether he's living in England and then moving to Germany and then moving back to England and then California and then here in Connecticut, back and forth, ping pong. He lived in Huntington and then up to Connecticut, then back here again. So he's kind of ping-pongs all over the place. And so when I said, I really want to go back to my home, and we came back out here to look for a house. And so we've been out here now since 94. And the other day he's like, this is the longest time I've ever been in one spot to live in one place at one spot. So I guess he's found his home and he's happy. And, so it's all good. I mean, it's such a beautiful place where we live. I mean, obviously there's a lot of negatives, and Richie always jokes and says, I moved back there because of the high taxes, because of the radiation fallout from Shoreham, because of the pollution, because they're basically tearing up all the fields that we moved out here for in the first place and putting up housing. So but at the end of the day, there's such an energy on Long Island, and the people are just so amazing, and going out, and just smelling that fresh, ocean air and looking out and seeing the water, it's so grounding, and the sunsets are just gorgeous. And I always feel like 24-hour convenience, no matter, you can go to 7-Eleven at 4 o'clock in the morning if you feel you have a craving for Haagen-Dazs ice cream or whatever, everything's right there for you. And like you said, the
Candice,
pizza and bagels.
there are no 7-Elevens up here, Candice, and my wife and I love 7-Eleven coffee. I can't stand Starbucks. Dunkin' Donuts.
I'm not a Starbucks.
Yeah, but yes, 7-Eleven coffee.
Phil, one day I'm going to surprise you. We will play in your sheep fields, and I will bring you 7-Eleven coffee. I will just, maybe on a birthday or something, just to help you out up there. We'll make it the time of your life. We'll have a giant box of coffee for you.
I will talk to the sheep's agent, and we'll make that happen.
I love it. That sounds great. I'll get my agent on the phone immediately.
Yes. Give me what's that list you put in your waiting room? The room you get when you do a gig. Your pull list, whatever that's called.
That's right, exactly. We need the writer. We have.
That's it.
Writer.
Yeah, we'll see how difficult the sheep's rider is. Candice, there's a great quote from Richie about you. Or that you're talking about Richie, and you were just talking about him in the moving in the Long Island and everything. And you say about him, when he sings only for me in private. This is, and I love that. I just love that. I mean, you are the voice of Blackmore's Night, but Richie there is you're each other's muses. How has that collaboration been? Between the two of you, husband and wife, you've been working together since the 90s. It sounds, from what I read, exceptionally special. That
it is, for sure. And of course, like every other married couple, I know I have, obviously all my friends married, and they're like, oh my God, if my husband didn't go to work and, leave the house at this time, I'd go crazy if we were on top of each other in the house all the time. I would probably kill him. But, Richie and I have been basically on top of each other all the time since the early 90s, I would say. And we haven't killed each other yet, so that's a good sign. And so honestly, it's so interesting to be able to find someone who is your creative counterpart as well as your life counterpart, and it's such a special gift to be able to, he's in the other room playing guitar all the time. I'm with the kids or doing what I need to do here for the household or doing my job and, doing interviews or whatever. And then, if he has an idea, then I just go in the other room and we work on it right away. I don't have to clock in or clock out or check my schedule and clear time like you would with a regular band member that, lives someplace else. And we're just around each other all the time, so we kind of just live and breathe it. And I always find, and I know it's so cliche, but my strengths are his weaknesses and vice versa.
Beautiful.
So he is completely just this improvisational creature who pulls from another source, channels from above. And it almost foregoes, I hope this comes out the right way. It kind of foregoes his brain. It just goes directly from above into his heart and his soul and out his fingertips. And so he doesn't analyze. There's no analytical portion really with Richie. And he could play the same thing twice in a row, and to him, he'll say it's the same thing, but when you listen to it, he's got a different take on it right away, back to back. And you're like, wait, do you want me to play what you played the first time or the second time? And he doesn't even realize that he's doing it differently. He's just improvising all the time. He's that creative. And me, I swear, there's a tape recorder in my brain. So if I do it one way, I can go into the studio and the producer will say, okay, we want to double track this part. And I'll go double track my own vocal. And the producer will say to me, wait, did you do it? And I'm like, yeah, I sang along with it. And they have to mute the first track and check on the second track to realize, because it's identical. I will sing identically what I did before. And it's oh yeah, it is there. Oh my God. It was so right on with what you just did prior that, I couldn't even hear it. So it was that dead on. So the two of us really complement each other really well. And to be around someone who's able to do that with you and for you and connect with you on such a deep spiritual level and musically, it's just amazing. I mean, if you went out and looked for someone like that, it would be really difficult. So we're just really lucky that it worked out to be like that for us.
You're listening to Candice Knight on WUSB Stony Brook. The new album is Nature's Light, the new Blackmore's Night album. Brian May referred to Ritchie Blackmore as a trailblazer and technically incredible, unpredictable in every possible way. You never knew what you were going to see when you went to see Purple, referring to, of course, Deep Purple show. Is Ritchie still unpredictable to you, or can you predict him, Candice?
Predictably unpredictable. Like you're predicting that he's going to be unpredictable. You just don't know what the unpredictability is going to be. So it still keeps me on my toes, keeps all the band members on their toes constantly. As a matter of fact, that's why I think so many people come to see Blackmore's Night so many times in a row, because they know that the set list, Ritchie's always going to change the set list, and he does it from the vibe he gets from the audience, from the sound he gets wherever we're playing. If we're playing outside or surrounded by stone walls in a castle, the sound is much more of it'd be perfect for acoustics because it kind of bounces back. But yet, if you're outside and there's he has this whole entire idea that he has in mind where if you don't have the stone walls behind you, then the sound kind of just goes up and leaves. So you can play more, more hard rock things or louder things. And then if you're looking at the audience, you can read the audience and see which, if they're more of a partying audience, if they're more introspective, if they want to be taken on an emotional musical journey with you. And every night he changes that set list. And the songs, every time he plays the songs, he changes the way that the songs are interpreted. So different intros, different solos, different arrangements. So every show we do is a different show every single night. And I think that's why so many people come back and see us so often, because they know it's going to be just different every time that they come. So
before the pandemic, you don't do a lot of. I remember you did a show. The last Blackmore's Night show I heard of that I said, I should go and see them, literally sold out in like a day. Yeah. It was at the Bolton Center in Bayshore. And I wanted to hit that gig, and I'm like, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go on, and I go on the website, and it's like sold out.
That went really fast. Yeah, well, plus hometown gigs. I mean, I think it's because we don't play out that often. I mean, like we said, Ritchie's, he's been on the road since he's 16. He's older now. So he's got, there's medical things that are going on, and traveling is not as easy, as it used to be probably. And even, the ease of traveling. Even prior, forget about now, but prior to the pandemic when, there were so many restrictions in place and there's a lot of security, and then there's, whether they're the cancellations of flights and then, it's just like it wound up where you would sit in a room and wait in a terminal, a plane terminal, and then only to find out the flights were canceled or delayed. So it was tricky. So then he got to, especially in America, he got to the point where he would only go to where we could drive to, but he can't sit in a car for that amount of time because he's got back problems. So, so he'd have to travel a couple of hours, maybe stay overnight, and then another couple of hours, and then all of that stuff that maybe people don't normally think about goes into the planning and the routing of the tours. But then of course, hometown gigs, they're amazing. Everybody wants to come. And I usually stay out on the stage afterwards and see all my friends. And people they come up to the front of the stage and we talk to everybody, and your landscaper will come up and be like, hey, remember, or like the guy that, makes your bagels or whatever, and everybody winds up coming. You're like, oh my God, hi, how are you? And, I'm going to see you on Sunday to get my bagels. And, so just everybody's there. So I think that those tickets go really fast. But we've had amazing venues and amazing gigs out here. Paramount we play pretty often. That's always a great gig. I still call it Westbury Music Fair. I know it's changed names so many times, but I still call it Westbury Music Fair because I'm old school. So we played there. Of course, Patchogue Theater. There's so many great places out here. So
Patchogue Theater looking great lately. The renovations, just did astounding stuff. Let's talk about the album. I'm having a great time chatting with you, but we're here to talk about Nature's Light. And
great! I forgot.
But I'm having a blast, Candice, and thank you so much for being such a great sport. Looking at the songs and going over the copy you sent me, 3 really stand out. And the first I want to talk about is Four Winds, and that's a song that you talk about are basing it on these 2 friends of yours that were very special to me, and one was represented by the ocean, and the other by the forest. I think this one was the spirit of the wolf, and the other had the spirit of the dolphin. Tell us a little bit about Four Winds and where that came from.
Okay. Yes, Four Winds, song very close to my heart. I, of course, growing up out here on Long Island, so two of my very closest friends, one of them I met when I was 5 years old, so we have had a very, very long relationship, and both of these girls are soulmates to me, but very, very different spirits, very different girls. So one of them, the one that I met from childhood, from when I was 5, we went to college together out here to Old Westbury. And then she decided to go all the way across America, and she wound up in California, living in Venice, and just right by the ocean. And she would just go out there and watch the dolphins just jump through the waves and play every day, and very musical sort of soul. And so she's a very strong presence in my life, very spiritual. And then there's this other girl who I actually met in 10th grade. Her name was Christine. And she wound up in the woods of Virginia. She's actually right on the side, like on the perimeter of the woods. She's got a 5-acre horse farm out there, and just very earthy, very grounded. And again, another very strong part of my soul. And she's actually an art teacher. She had a beading, crafting center, and she would go and teach special ed kids. She still does that, and she finds that helps therapeutically for those kids. So just incredible presence, very healing. So basically what I wrote, I've had the idea to write about these two girls because they were so different, but it's amazing how people can really still be such a part of you, even though they're pulling from completely different places and from different directions, and still own part of you spiritually, and you still connect with them. And it's the kind of thing where when you see them again, you are just right back at that moment, and time and distance don't matter. Like it never really affected you, and your friendship and your sisterhood, So it was really important to me to kind of tell their stories. And actually, I wrote a lot more verses to this, but we had to take out a bunch of the verses because there was just so much to say. But they wanted, Richie and the producer kind of, of course they put more of the music into it than the words. So a lot of the verses kind of got taken out about the storyline. But their presence is very strong still in my life today. And so I have my friend Jill on the West Coast still out there, and my friend Christine, and she's in Virginia, and she's definitely the spirit of the wolf and the spirit of the dolphin, and that's where the storyline of Four Winds came from. But it's also how they're very strong parts. Not only are they singular entities and very strong individuals, but they're also parts of not only me, but maybe other people can recognize parts of themselves within this, and how we're all part of the trees and part of the seas, and how nature is such a very important part in all of us. So I think we can all recognize part of ourselves within this story.
And this is Four Winds by Black Wars Night here on WUSB Stony Brook.
Living a life that you knew here.
And we're back with Candice from Blackmore's Night at WUSB Stony Brook in the new album, Nature's Light. Candice, let's talk about The Last Musketeer. This is such a touching story from Richie. Let me see if I pronounce it correctly. De Litzi Musketeer. Am I close?
I am not really fluent in German, so that sounded perfect to me.
my mother was from Germany, and I'm hoping that I did her proud there.
I'm sure.
This is such a touching story. This early band Richie was in, his two buddies who have since passed away, and the thing that really touched my heart when I listened to Richie talk about this was that he said, this was back before I became famous. It was just the three of us, and there were no pressure. There was no pressure. You know, we were just having a good time. We were the Three Musketeers, and now two of them are gone, and I am the last Musketeer. Tell me a little bit about that and what went into that track that Richie was working on.
Yeah, that's true. So Richie, as you said, he was in a band called the Three Musketeers, and they were a bunch of kids. I mean, the three of them were just kids, and even you could probably see some of the pictures on the internet. And Richie had short hair, and they used to wear musketeer outfits, and they were playing, and just it was really just for the sake of music and for fun and enjoying the experience, and so many laughs and so many wonderful memories. And then, of course, when he wound up in Deep Purple, my gosh, it was just like this incredible amount of success and of fame. But with that comes, the pressure of fame and touring all the time and never being home and living out of a suitcase and being sick but still having to perform and not really having any strong relationships because you're constantly moving, constantly, going to the next place and egos get involved and so much pressure from record companies and it doesn't become fun anymore. It really loses that sparkle and that shine that music once had, when you first began. And so I think for him, the Three Musketeers was always just this wonderful, untouched place, to have these incredible memories. And he was in touch with Arvid, Andy it was his nickname, one of the Musketeers he moved to Switzerland, so he used to write all of these amazing letters to Richie, and he would send him like these photographs and clips of when they were in newspapers like many years ago, but Richie actually was able to see Jimmy Tornado Evans, who was this amazing drummer, and probably, I would say, Richie's best friend in the music industry. And Jimmy he was older than Richie. He kind of really took Richie under his wing and they would stay in these hotel rooms together and they would stay up talking. And, I think Richie said that Jimmy was the first one to teach him how to drink beer. He was the first. So that started a whole other thing.
So that's on him then.
That's where it came from. So I can blame him for that. But I mean, he just had so much fun, and he lost touch with Jimmy for a really long time, and he actually hired a private investigator to find him again, probably about 10 to 15 years ago, and we were able to find him. And every time we went back to England, Richie was able to just go out to Jimmy's local pub, and they would just sit and talk for hours. And like I said about Christine being a very grounding presence, for Richie, Jimmy was just this incredibly sometimes you just meet these people that calm you. They're like salt of the earth. There's something about them that really kind of just make you, it's almost like a very zen presence. And I think that's what Jimmy had for Richie. He kind of was like an older brother for him. And then we got the news in 2018 that Jimmy had suffered a stroke, and we lost him, and he was gone. And I think it was really devastating for Richie. It was really hard for him to not have that presence in his life anymore. And so now looking back over the years, of course he's able to just kind of revisit those memories, but it was the realization, that deep realization that two of the Three Musketeers are no longer with us on this earthly realm, this earthly planet. And Richie was the last Musketeer. So one night I was out, it was a very quiet night in the house, and he took his electric guitar and he just opened up his soul and had this spiritual channeling where he wrote the song, and it wound up being The Last Musketeer, or De Letzte Musketiere. And so that song was really in honor to those two amazing presences in his life, and the memories that they had, and the realization that he was kind of the last one left. It's kind of a little heartbreaking, but a beautiful, beautiful song.
And here is Richie Blackmore.
Hi, this is Richie Blackmore, and you're listening to my new single called The Last Musketeer.
We are back with Candice from Blackmore's Night. Candice, I love the last track on this album, The Second Element. This I've dropped it in several of my shows already. I've had the album for about a month or so now. I just love this. I love what you do with this. I listened to the original Sarah Brightman tune, her version of it. Nothing against Sarah, but I love your version. It's absolutely wonderful. I love the theme, the theme of water being the second element. I mean, it made me think of The Fifth Element, the science fiction movie, which I think is just a great movie. But at the same time, I just loved everything about this, and I just love that last bit you do at the end. Wasn't it you? And then one more time. Wasn't it you? Like an echo. It's like it bared repeating. And what I love is sometimes I just love the quiet in between the notes. Where silence is just as important as the notes themselves. And you make great use of that at the ending of this piece. Tell me a little bit about why you guys decided to cover this piece.
I agree with you about silence. I think it really gives room for everything to breathe. To have that space is so important. Okay, so the Sarah Brightman song, I had fallen in love with that song when it was on her album Dive. When I first discovered it years ago. And I think I only really started going back into the Sarah Brightman, into her discography after I saw her on a PBS station, when they had, I believe it was Eden. They were playing her concert Eden. And I went, oh my goodness, who is this woman? She's fabulous. She does pop, she does opera. Her voice, it just blew my mind. And we wound up connecting with her and Frank, who was her producer, and also co-wrote that song, Second Element. And just amazing people. Actually, Sarah and Frank came to our show when we played in Hamburg, Germany. Funny story, it was the only time that I will give Richie a free pass on lying to me. He doesn't lie to me. We do not tolerate lies in this relationship, but honestly, we heard Sarah Brightman was coming to our show in Hamburg. And how do you sing in front of Sarah Brightman is the question.
Yeah.
Right? So there I am. And I had seen her perform in Madison Square Garden, and it was like larger than, she came out and there was an orchestra, and then there were background dancers, and then there were bagpipe players, and then she was suspended from a ceiling, with confetti. It was a gigantic production. And then there's us doing, we completely take the opposite side of that. We don't rely on pyrotechnics, and we don't rely on giant stage production. We love the intimacy of playing smaller shows and connecting with the audience, and it's just as valid, I think, because it's a deep emotional connection you can get from the audience. So we sit and we talk to people in the front row, and we get people up on stage, and Reggie's passing out beer to people, and we're taking requests. It's really like being at a party at our house, So it's a completely different stage experience than what Sarah had. But sure enough, we heard that her and Frank were coming to the show. I flat out panicked. I'm like, oh my God, Sarah Brightman is coming to the show. And I'm like, breaking into a sweat. And I looked out behind the big, heavy drapes that were in this amazing opera house. And I could have sworn that I saw her sitting in the box, like one of those, those boxes.
Yeah, the opera box, yep.
And I went, Richie, oh my God, there she is. She's definitely out there. And he looked right into my face and said, no, sweetie, she's not coming. Her and Frank actually called. Sarah's not feeling well tonight, so they canceled, but they wish us the best of luck, and we'll have to catch up with them another time. Completely lied right to my face. And I didn't know he was lying until afterwards when she came back. And so I was able to sing. It freed me of any kind of, fear that I had of singing in front of her. And we did a great show. We had a great time. And afterwards, sure enough, Sarah and Frank come back to the backstage. And I looked at my husband like, I'm going to kill you for this. But it got me through. And so that's the only time I gave him the free pass online. He's never lied to me since or again. So that's
I'm actually emotionally giving Richie a high five right now for doing that. I think that was the right thing to do, and
it definitely worked that night. Sure.
To quote Captain Kirk's best friend, the needs of the one. Actually, this is a Captain Kirk quote. The needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many.
Wow.
So there you go.
Very true. Yes.
There you
See,
go.
everything comes into play. So, so it worked out. And then, but I wound up going back and like listening to, a lot of the things that she had put out there. And that song just really resonated and really spoke to me. And I would download it in my iPod, or like whenever I went on the road, I would, have like my playlist, and that was always one of the first ones that I would pick. So when we decided to do our album, and I've wanted to do this song for many years. But again, it comes into how there's no point in doing a song if you're going to try to emulate what somebody else has already done, because they already did it perfectly, in their sort of genre and their realm. So you always have to try to do it a little bit differently. And I wrote to Frank and I said, what do you think? Is it okay if we try to cover the song? And he was so happy about it. I think I wrote to him at 2:00 in the morning. It just hit a spur of the moment. He said, absolutely. It'd be great. We'd love to hear that. So Richie and I put our little Blackmore's Night spin on it with the, it starts off very angelic and then it just builds into, which really kind of is the element of water. It starts off very like these little streams and things, and the bringer of life, and how important water is in all of our, not only in our bodies scientifically, but in the world, 75% of this earth being water. Which I always say to my daughter, why is the world called Earth? Why isn't it called water if most of it's water? We always try to figure that one out. It's just such a driving, strong, magical force, and so very, very important in all of our lives. And the moon pulling on the tides. I could sit here and talk about all nature's elements for a very long time, but it just wound up being this song that really resonated and that I absolutely full on fell in love with, and we thought we could interpret it, and I love the way that it came out with how it builds at the end and the electric guitars at the end.
Yes.
We had a video where it just kind of, so I'm really, really proud of the way. I think it's probably my favorite track on the album. It's always funny when your favorite track on the album is one you didn't write, but but I absolutely love that song, and I have for a very, very long time.
I love it too, and here is the song we're talking about, Second Element, on WUSB Stony Brook, and Sarah Brightman is not listening, Candice. She is not listening right now. Not listening. My fingers are crossed, but Sarah's not listening. Here we go with Second Element. You've been listening to the new album by Blackmore's Night, and we are here with Candice Knight here on WUSB Stony Brook. We need to wrap it up. We only have a few minutes left with Candice, and I want to just thank Carol for helping set up this interview, and my good friend Norm, who also brought us together. So thank you so much, everybody, for that. And just a couple of quick things. I know you need to leave in a few minutes, Candice. I can't help but think about my old teaching days when I hear going to the fair. And the thing I think about is because I work in special education music for 31 years, and at one point of my career I was working with multiply handicapped middle and high schoolers, probably between 12 to 21 years old. And when I first heard going to the fair, I said to myself, I could do this song at school. I could either play the song or I could make a huge production and get all of my students with all the different abilities. We're talking about some kids who are in wheelchairs, some kids who can't talk, some kids who need a talking machine to help them talk, things like this. This would be a great thing. This would be a great teaching thing. And then when I read a little more copy on the song, or I listened to one of your interviews, I believe your children are singing at the end.
They are.
So tell me a little bit about going to the fair. For me, it just pushed all my old teacher buttons. And
I love that.
Almost made me want to go back to work. Not completely. But I almost said, if only I was teaching again. Oh, well, I'm not. But it just really, everything engaged in my, because I used to, sometimes I would hear a song and I would say to myself, I'm going to do that song in class. I'm going to teach that song.
I love that. I love that.
And that's what I felt with this one. Go ahead.
Yes, no, that's fantastic. As a matter of fact, I think that's one of the greatest gifts that we've been on the receiving end of. I mean, of course, we put our music out there. It's kind of created because we don't follow, trends and fashions or what's in or what's cool or what we need to do to be on a radio station or we don't follow those guidelines. So we're able to kind of just follow our hearts and our souls and basically just allow the music to take us where it wants to go. So it's kind of created, I hate to say it but from a selfish perspective, but because we're doing it really for ourselves first, and then we put it out there for the rest of the world. And I think one of the amazing gifts is hearing people like you tell me that even if they haven't used it in teaching, but we have a lot of people who actually are teachers that write in from all over the world. I know people in Germany, teachers in Germany that have written in and told us that they actually use our songs to teach their classes how to speak English. Like they're working on teaching them, the English language. And so they found to do it through music is really very helpful. And our songs and our lyrics really are able to, help that. We found that people are using our music in birthing rooms. It's the first thing they want their babies to hear when they come into the world, so they choose those songs. And, conversely, people who have chosen to use songs not only on their wedding days, which is beautiful, it's, just having very special moments in their lives highlighted by music, but also people who are passing on to the other realm. People who are in hospices will play our music for their loved ones to help them have a peaceful and easy transition. So it's always interesting to me. We have people who have full-on Blackmore's Night days in elementary schools that people have written in and said, they bring in recorders for their kids, their little elementary school kids or preschool kids and see if, little tambourines and things so they can all play along and sing along.
I could see the parade. I could literally see the parade. I'm like driving around. I'm driving around up here in my truck, past the sheep farm, and I'm hearing this. I'm saying to myself, I'm visualizing a parade in the school gym of the school I used to teach at, with and just with the instruments and with the adaptive, trying to adapt it, whatever, it just really opened up that whole creative can in my head, and
absolutely. Yeah.
There's so much great access to everyone in this song, and that's what I love about it. It seems accessible to everybody.
Yeah, especially the sheep, I would think.
Especially the sheep, yes.
They're very, and they're very happy that you're sharing this music with them.
I'm going to have to get the sheep to co-host with me one of these days. It's going to be going to get a longer mic cord to get out to that field.
You should. You need I think with the Zoom thing, you just need like the Wi-Fi to just go a little bit further out into that sheep field for you.
Believe it or not, I have a fantastic internet service provider out here. Even though I'm out in the sticks, there's unbelievable service out here. I know we have like 2 minutes left. I must say, before we close this off, Candice, Nature's Light. I love that song because you're telling a story to me. I really feel like in that song, the way you use your voice, the inflection of your voice, you're explaining something to me. You've said, sit down and pay attention, Phil. I'm going to tell you a story. And then the brass is playing and all that, and you say it. You say, "Oh, hail the Queen."
Yeah,
I love that so much. And I said to myself, does Candice go out on stage to "All Hail the Queen"? You know, that would be like a great entrance. Briefly, I know we're at 2 minutes. We're at 2 minutes before you have to split, but briefly, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I feel like you've chosen the two songs, "Going to the Fair" and "Nature's Light," that really bring so much joy into the world and into this musical landscape that we've kind of painted on Nature's Light. So it's an interesting way to end the interview, that on that joyous high note. And 2018 wound up being like a really dark time for Richie and myself. We had a lot of loss. A lot of people around us had passed to the other side, and so it was difficult in 2019 to try to record again. But I found specifically that through the writing process, it was so cathartic and it was so healing that it really helped me with the grieving process and to kind of put things in perspective and get me through. And it was really, back to music being so incredibly healing, and the visuals of nature and the magic and the miracles that lie within nature are just so soul rewarding and so spiritually rewarding and healing. And then we were ready to release the album in 2020 when the pandemic hit. So ironically, we were all now in this kind of dark place. There was a lot of fear, a lot of unknown, a lot of sickness, a lot of isolation. And so now that the album's out in 2021, I feel like the music that helped to heal us, because going through that writing process, especially, how it healed us, or how it healed me, within the writing of the words and the singing. By the end of writing this album, I was able to sing happier songs and write and create happier songs like Nature's Light and like Going to the Fair, and get my kids involved and, have them sing the end of it. And of course, one of the things we always love to do is go to Renaissance fairs. We've been to so many around the country and around the world, but, going upstate, that's our hometown Renaissance fairs when we go upstate, to Tuxedo. And so, it's kind of like singing about being in the Renaissance fairs and kind of looking back through the veil of time to more simple times. And then with Nature's Light specifically, we wound up having a parallel within the lyrics to going back to nature that, not only is it sort of pageantry and bombastic and celebratory that when the Queen is coming, through the fairs or coming to town, that everybody stands up and celebrates, and they have that big a celebration of the parade going through, and everybody gets involved and all the fair performers are doing, they're all dancing along and
huzzah,
really
huzzah.
Yeah, exactly, huzzah, exactly. And in the Fairy Fest they say kumbayando, but yeah, so it's so freeing, and it makes you feel so good that I wound up somehow lyrically writing likening it to nature and to the sun shining through and to it like healing all of us. And so All Hail the Queen doesn't have to be that specific queen of the Queen walking through the Renaissance fair, with all the pageantry and bombastic going, all around her, but it's also about the celebration of nature and her, the power and the miracles and the magic that we should be celebrating every day that come in front of us that we tend not to even see. The colors of the sunset, the wind through your hair. Nature is like the great queen for us. And so we're just it heals us, but it's so rewarding, just to look out there at that beautiful sunny sky, or watching the crystal snowflakes come down every time of year. There's so much beauty out there in front of us every day, and we found that was so healing. So that's sort of like a parallel, that not only is it the figurative queen, but it's also what's in front of us all the time. So we're just kind of paying homage to nature as our queen.
www.blackmoresnight.com for the CD Nature's Light. Candice Knight, all hail the Queen, Candice. And thank you, Your Majesty, for coming to Captain Phil's Planet. And if you ever would like to be the queen of a planet, I believe the position is open here. And I'll let Richie be the king, too. Just let me go off and do my own thing. You guys,
your wish is granted, Captain Phil.
I feel knighted. I know we're running out of time here. I just want to thank you again, Candice. This has been more than fun. This has been amazingly great for me. Anytime, once we open up and you guys decide you're going to gig again, or there's going to be another album after this one, do me a favor and get in touch with me. I'd love to have you back and discuss this and more. We didn't even talk about the Society of Creative Anachronism at this show.
So much to talk about.
There's so much to talk about that we didn't get to. So I again, thank you for your generosity. It's already 3 minutes past the time you needed to stop. So I'm going to let you go, my friend, and be well. And I will be getting copies of this to you in the next couple of days.
Thank you so much. I really just, it was such a wonderful time. I love talking to you, and now we've got history, so we'll definitely have to do it again. And I want to thank Carol as well as thanking Norm too, and thank you for being such a gracious host. And we will come back, and hopefully we're planning on, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that those tours are going to start opening again. We've heard September, so we're starting to planning now. Definitely working on stuff here in America, so I'm very excited about that.
And if you're driving up past Stony Brook, just give a wave to the 7-Eleven for me and tell them I said hi.
Of course. I will. I'll pick up some coffee and toast you.
Thank you so much, Candice. Take care, my friend.
Thank you, Captain Phil. Take care. Bye-bye.